the one in which Sam is dreaming about their cases before they happen again. Welcome to Supernatural First Watch Podcast, a rewatch podcast designed to be spoiler-free and enjoyed as if it's your first watch. I'm your host, Kimberly, a self-proclaimed sci-fi and fantasy nerd. Previously, we visited an ex-girlfriend of Dean's who was having a little bit of a ghost monster truck problem. And now we're back on the road in Nightmare. So let's dive in. Sam is having visions again, or dreams, or nightmares, whichever you would like to call them, in which he's witnessing somebody die. So, thinking that it's actually in the future, they speed off into Michigan only to find out they're too late, but there's something a little bit more sinister happening even beyond this. So let's dive deeper. We open with our previously on segment, which is a little bit changed. It's still in the regular story method, but it seems to be a little bit different than the regular one that we have been seeing so far, which makes me think that it's a little bit more of what we call arc episodes. I have noticed, at least in the episode where they went back to Kansas and the episode where they finally talked to their father, that the opener of the previously on segment is a little bit different, and the one in between episodes is very similar. So this makes me think maybe we're going to find out more about why Sam is having these dreams. So we open in Saginaw, Michigan, where a man is pulling into a garage. And I gotta say, when the first time I saw this, I was wondering if it was the car that they usually drive. I'm not a car person, but it looked somewhat similar. But we find out that no, it's not. It's a random guy who pulls into the garage, it closes behind him, and the car decides to turn itself on, and he dies of carbon monoxide poisoning. Even though he's frantically trying to get out of the car is locking him in. And of course, this is not just the teaser. Sam actually wakes up and realizes that he is dreaming of this man's death. He wakes up Dean and insists that it's going to happen, not that it already has happened, and they need to head to Michigan immediately. Dean's a bit skeptical, but realizes that Sam is pretty freaked out, so they hit the road and realize that they are quite a ways away. While they're driving, Sam rattles off Officer McCready's badge number, who is a member of the FBI, and he knows the exact lingo to use in order to get the registration for a particular set of plates and find out where they are. Makes me wonder, okay, where did he get this badge? Why, if the badge was stolen from somebody, why has it not been flagged yet? And what kind of training did they get? Or is this simply because they've been doing this for so long that they know exactly what to say in order to speak to people to get this sort of information, including registration for a state that they're not even in? Dean is flooring the car, trying to get there in time, but of course, when they arrive, they are too late. The man Sam was dreaming of is dead. Sam is convinced, though, that he did not commit suicide, despite what appears to be a very clear cut-and-dry suicide case, and that somebody murdered him. The next day, they decide that they should crash the wake as priests, and they meet the brother of the victim, Roger. They also talk to the wife and briefly speak with their son, trying to figure out exactly what might have happened. Of course, what most of the time would guarantee an easy entry into the house, the man that opens the door, the brother of the victim, he's not into God, but he does let them in. Sam wants to talk to the kid who found his father, and so that leaves Dean with the grieving widow, who he tries to talk with and find out if there was any signs of a spirit possessing the house. Of course, he hits a dead end, and he goes to use his newer fancy-dancy EMF detector that has lasers and a view screen for some reason. They find nothing and head out. That night, Sam has waking head pains and gets a vision of the brother at his apartment. He sees a window open, and while trying to close it, Roger gets completely cut in half by the window sash coming down on him. Now that they're at least closer, they rush to Roger's apartment to try and find out what's going on and stop him from dying. Once again, even though they're not nearly as far away this time, they're prevented from breaking in and saving him, so they run out the fire escape but get there too late. They have no signs of a ghost activity, and Dean starts to think maybe the family itself is cursed. But clearly, something in their wheelhouse is going on. Dean, of course, immediately switches into protection mode and wipes down the staircase and rushes them out of the crime scene because clearly somebody is going to call this in, and fast. They go back and try and talk with the family, and all they're able to get is that they used to live in a different house and that the uncle lived next door. So they go to talk to the neighbors and find out that things were not exactly happy families at the house. The father and the uncle both seem to have been terrible drunks and incredibly abusive to Max, who they've already had several conversations with, who claimed that everything was fine. The neighbor did try and call the police several times and report the abuse, but nothing ever came of it. And then, of course, eventually they did leave, so he didn't put much more thought into it afterhand, although he does show a deep concern that something else might have happened to the boy. They quickly leave the conversation when Sam is once again overwhelmed by another vision, this time of Max confronting his stepmother, levitating a knife, and murdering her. They speed over to the house where Sam has to talk Dean down from killing the kid, who is clearly the person killing these people, and instead wants to talk to him. Once again, they have the conversation that this is a human being, not a creature. So it begs the question, is this really their purview? What can they do about it? And what is the appropriate response? Sam wants to talk to Max because obviously he feels connected, since both of them seem to have strange powers, but also he's been dreaming about what Max is doing, so he thinks there's some sort of connection there. Also, as he explains to Dean, this is a kid, not a vampire or a werewolf or any other sort of supernatural creature, so they can't just decide to get rid of him. They get to the house and do get welcomed back in, but very quickly Max catches on that not everything is as it seems. He grabs the gun from Dean and has injured his mother in the process. Sam is still determined that he's going to be able to have a conversation and settle things down. So he does allow, Max does allow both Dean and Alice to go upstairs into another room while Sam and he have a conversation. We find out that this is actually his stepmother, not his real mother, and his real mother died in the nursery with the baby, pinned to the ceiling and burned to death just like Sam's own mother. This, of course, shows exactly why Sam is somewhat connected, because their mothers both died in similar fashions. And about 7 months ago, both of them started having strange abilities. Sam tries to shut Max down and let him release the anger, especially since both of his abusers are dead and his mother or stepmother never touched him. But Max, not in for it. He decides, no thank you. He shoves Sam into a closet, goes after Dean and Alice, and we see him shoot Dean in the head. Thankfully, of course, this is one of Sam's visions, and he is getting it just moments before what will happen. This time, he is able to use his powers to open the closet, and he's shocked but going to keep going because he wants to save his brother. Unlike the other 2 times where he tried to save the strangers, he runs upstairs and is able to appeal to Max to not kill his brother or his stepmother. But Max is too far gone and too angry still and completely depressed about what has become of his life, and he shoots himself instead. When the cops come, Mrs. Miller lies for them and claims that her son went crazy and they had nothing to do with what was going on and that they are family friends. They are free to go, and this poor woman has lost every single member of her family, whether or not the situation was healthy. In a true reversal of most of what we have seen from Sam so far, he shares with Dean that their father actually saved them. That if there was a little more drinking and a little less demon hunting, he wonders if their father would have created the environment that they did, but determines that, of course, the way they grew up is better than the way Max grew up, and they have a little tete-a-tete, and then he starts to contemplate, why now? Why is this happening now? Sam also shares with Dean that he used his own powers to get out of the closet, and so they are getting stronger. But Dean is not worried that Sam is going to get out of control because he's around to help stabilize him. And then, of course, he jokingly shares that they should head to Vegas and use Sam's telekinesis and precognition powers. There is no local legend this week, and Who Are We this week is Sam and Dean decide to impersonate priests. And it's really unclear to me as to why this was the choice that they needed to make to crash the wake this time. Especially since we've seen them crash wakes in the past. We've seen them crash funerals in the past. We've seen them talk to friends, family, immediately after tragedy and months after tragedy, and never need to go to the level of impersonating a religious entity. So I do find it intriguing also that they had the clothes with them to impersonate priests, and clearly as well, at least Dean does know his Bible a little bit because he's able to talk the good talk, if you will. We also have no real other supernatural baddies because they're not sure about what is killing these people until Sam realizes that it's actually the kid Max. How do you talk down a homicidal telekinetic person? Apparently, you tell them they need to get over it, and then they decide to commit suicide. But something to note here, of course, is that Max is sad. Max is depressed. Max is full of anger. And Max himself acknowledges that he can't seem to let what happened to him go, and he doesn't know where to go from here. He felt finally safe enough with these powers. However, he was still beaten very recently from his father, even with the powers that he had. And it's all just too much for him, so he decides to end it. This episode is a really nice deep dive into what is going on with Sam. And it brings up a whole lot of questions. And once again, it brings up some really great gray areas. One of the things I really enjoy about these so far, we've had a number of straightforward episodes where it's a clear baddie, it's a clear creature, we can't let them live, and of course the only thing to do is to get rid of them. Especially when we're talking about a ghost, for example. So it's somebody who's already died, and it's just their spirit hanging around. It doesn't seem to be, quote-unquote, a living, breathing person, right? But these questions that introduce levels of faith, levels of gray, I do find interesting, and I love the approach that we get here. Number one, we have Dean, who has determined that if this kid is using telekinetic powers to kill people, that falls into their realm and he has to be stopped. And he is very much willing and ready to defend others, just no matter what it is that they have done, right? So we find out, and we are pretty clear, that the father and the uncle were both abusive towards the child. The mother was not. The stepmother was not abusing her child. However, she was letting it happen. And she was, as they phrase within the episode, she did nothing to stop it. She just stood by and watched. So this is always a really gray area, even in traditional cop shows or family law shows that you can watch on television now as well. And it is a clear gray question in the courts is who's capable, who's culpable, who is responsible. Obviously, women in this situation are usually victims themselves in some way, shape, or form. They're either being controlled financially, emotionally. They may not be the person getting the violence visited on them, but they are also victims. So it is a very complex question around who is responsible and how can you stop it? So Max has determined that because she was there and from his perspective did nothing, that she deserves to die as well. And Dean has determined that she should not be left to that fate, so is willing to stand in front of her and give his life in protection of this woman who he barely knows. Obviously, that scenario does not fully play out because it's only a vision that Sam has, but we are clearly shown that in this instance, Sam is not viewing what he thinks might happen. He is viewing what is about to happen from Max's perspective just a few minutes or just a few hours before it does. And so he's able to affect a change and stop that from happening. But it's not that he thinks his brother would do this. It is exactly what Dean is doing. And so it's a gray area as well. Obviously, telekinesis kind of falls into the area of the supernatural. But on the other hand, it is a person. It is not somebody who... We don't know why this is happening, right? We just know that both of these people had their mothers murdered in horrible fashions that are the exact same. So we don't know why Sam's getting powers. We don't know why Max got telekinetic powers. We don't know why Max got his powers faster and they developed faster than Sam's. But he is what one would consider just a normal person, especially as of 7 months ago when this suddenly happened. So where does the hunter come in? And what level of involvement should the hunter have when this happens, right? Even before they know what's going on, they try and save the father, they try and save the uncle, because is it to them to decide who lives and dies? Or is it strictly their role, their job, to stop the supernatural from taking human lives? So it's a great question. It's a great moral question about where do they call in? Also, clearly, in most instances, many of us would say, well, this is a matter for the police. But how do you contain somebody who can open doors and fling knives and shoot guns without ever putting his finger on the trigger? So it's a great question as well as to, can you hand him over to the police? Of course, this situation is taken out of their hands and they don't end up having to really, truly grapple with it because he decides to shoot himself. But what if that didn't happen? What if Sam did talk him down, and then what happens next? Do you stick around and make sure he doesn't change his mind and attack his stepmother again? Is he responsible? Do you report him to the police? All really great questions that none of them really have a clear-cut answer to. Also, why now? Another great question to contemplate is, why is Sam suddenly seeing these visions now? Were they close enough? Because it's clear from the dialogue that 7 months ago is when both of them started having something change. So I'm assuming now we're about 7 months out from Jess's death, maybe 8 months out. So that's when Sam started to have visions. Is that when this kid's powers started? How did they start? Did they start differently? Why are these two people affected? Clearly, it's something with their mothers, because both of their mothers died in the exact same manner. In the nursery, above their bed, slashed open, and then burned. So why now? It's been 20 plus years. Why is it now that this is happening? And why has it taken 7 months for now Sam to actually see these visions? Why didn't he see them earlier? All really great questions. We also get another glimpse into the hunting lifestyle and kind of a day in the life, or a slice of life, if you will, while they're doing their research, while they're trying to find out what might have been going on in the house. They mention offhand that nothing bad happened on the land. There were no tribal or evil stories that had happened there. There were no murders. There was no war site there. So nothing had happened to the land. Nothing had happened in the house. But also we see Dean doing something that I find many shows that have this type of storyline don't address, and that's Dean taking care of their supplies. So Dean is also, we have a great shot of him kind of laying everything out and cleaning all of the weapons and maintaining them, because it is a huge undertaking to have that kind of arsenal at your disposal and making sure everything is in working order. So we get the big story of what's going on with Sam. We get the actual Creature of the Week feature, if you will, of Max and his telekinetic powers. And we get a nice slice of life of what's it like to be a hunter beyond just, showing up and figuring out what's what. So we kind of touch on all of the different pieces of the supernatural world in this episode. We've touched on the big picture, what's happening with Sam. Does it have something to do with whatever killed their mom? We get the slice of life. We get the creature feature, if you will. We also see a development in Sam. He went from being able to dream, right? He it's heavily implied that he's got some sort of psychic powers because months ago he saw the vision of the woman in their house and what was going to happen with her. Now he's connected to this other person whose mother also died the exact same way. And we also, of course, get a nice little new aliases and new way of gathering information. So I really enjoy this episode. It's a solid progression past just, roll into town creature of the week, what's going on next. It ties into the bigger picture, I think, but it also does keep to all of the same story beats. So I really enjoyed this episode. I think it's a great continuation of what we've been seeing so far, especially after the break. We had Faith, where Dean almost died. We had then a little bit of his backstory with Route 666. And now we're here and diving more into Sam and his story and what's going on with him. And it's just raising more questions, but also drawing us further into this world. So a solid story and a solid episode for this run so far in the season. Technology in the new age. We don't have too many notes about technology, except that they're still using flip phones. Apparently, the FBI does not check to see if the phone number calling their switchboard is one associated with their actual agents, because Sam's able to use his regular cell phone to contact them and get the plate information. And Dean has his fancy EMF reader, which now has screens and lasers and is like 4 times bigger. And once again, my thought is I can't contemplate having to drag that around when trying to look for a ghost in a life or death situation. And so it's a complete change from the homemade version that at least was concealable as listening to music. And I think it was given a name, but I hope we don't see it again. It's huge and it's ridiculous, and I don't understand why they switched over to it. So the family business, we are learning a little bit more about what might have happened with the family. We learned that Sam is not the only person to have lost his mother in such a very specific fashion. Max also shares that she died above his nursery, pinned to the ceiling, slashed open, and then burned. Of course, unlike their father, who then dived into the hunting, Max's father kept telling the story, but Max actually didn't believe him. He thought he was lying after so long and that he had just somehow was actually responsible for his mother's death because of his drinking. And we don't know why, right? We don't know why. Of course, we also get a really nice beat at the end here where Dean says he's not worried about Sam going off the rails, right? This kid had a horrible childhood and turned to using his newfound powers to murder his abusers. And Dean's not worried that Sam's going to suddenly decide to start murdering people because he's his brother, obviously, but also because he has him. And I think this also is a good indicator that while Sam has made an acknowledgement that their father wasn't great, but their father also kept it together for them, I think this is another indicator that Dean was probably heavily involved with Sam's upbringing. Because as he says, as long as I'm here, nothing's going to happen. And that kind of responsibility doesn't start when you're in your 20s for your other adult sibling. I think that sense of responsibility, that sense of being involved in how you show up in the world probably starts a little bit earlier. But also, of course, it's also a nice beat just to know that Dean's here to support his brother, right? Dean has shown that anything supernatural, anything in the creature realm, including telekinesis of what once was a normal person, he feels it's his responsibility to take care of, but he's not worried about his brother, even after Sam shares that he has also now developed telekinesis. So Dean's like, yeah, no, I'm your brother. It's not a problem. And I find this a lovely interaction between the brothers, but it also shows that Dean is not as black and white as sometimes we think he is. And this builds on what happened last episode, where it's shown that the good little soldier that Dean has been seen as so far is willing to break the rules and break the orders that his father gives him because he told Cassie the truth. And so here we see that even though Sam now could be considered a part of the supernatural world, Dean is not worried and is not going to do anything about that. Great character development here and development of the relationship between the two brothers. So questions to contemplate for the future. I've mentioned some of them so far, but really wanting to harp on this a bit. Why now? Why does Sam start seeing these visions now? Also a question is, it's only been 7 months. I thought that in a previous episode, a few episodes ago actually, it had said that they had been hunting for 6 months. So has it only been like 2 or 3 weeks since then? It seems like it should have been longer. So how long now have they been on the road together? Have they heard from their father? Why now? For Sam's powers to grow and for him to start seeing this other person who has a connection as well. Are there more out there? Or is it just these two? What's with this very specific death of their mothers? And the fact that the children then still survived. I find that intriguing as well. Where's Dad? Still want to know, obviously the brothers don't seem to be actively looking for their father, but what's going on with that, right? A couple episodes ago, Dean was near death's door, literally. This episode, Dean could have died. Sam saw it and was able to stop it, but, why has this escalation started to happen for Sam, and what does that mean for their search for their father? Does this also mean that Sam's kind of changing his tune when it comes to their father? Because it's also clear that while he doesn't believe they had a great upbringing, obviously their father helped stabilize them after a massive tragedy. And so we've already seen one instance where Sam says, he misses his dad. He wants to apologize to his dad. So is this changing Sam's perception of their father as well? It was a really great question. And of course, the next question is, what else is going to happen, right? Is there another step to what's happening with Sam? Are his powers going to grow? How are they going to grow? Why are these particular powers the ones that have shown up, right? Being able to see the future, but not very far in the future. And is it location-based, right? Does he have to be near something in order to see this and have an impact? Or is he going to start seeing visions all around the world? And what might that mean for Sam and his sanity? All really great questions to contemplate, and I look forward to seeing what happens next. So overall, the Nightmare episode, I think, touches on all of the pieces of Supernatural. We're moving right along. It's opens up a lot of questions. We get a closing on this particular story, and I look forward to seeing what's next. So I will see you on the road in Supernatural in the next episode of the podcast First Watch, in the episode The Benders. So we'll connect on the road again soon in The Benders. Until then, you're listening to Supernatural First Watch Podcast. Don't miss out on future episodes. Be sure to subscribe to the show in your podcast player of choice. If you have opinions, theories, or comments you want to share about the road so far, send in your thoughts at the email in the show notes. Want to help support the podcast, want the spoilerific content deep dives and access early to the episodes? Check out the Patreon options in the show notes as well.